The village of Oguta was known across the lands for its legendary craftsmen, blacksmiths, weavers, and carvers whose works were sought after by kings. Their skill was said to be a gift from Ola, the goddess of the earth, who blessed the hands of Oguta's people. But Ihieoma's hands, they were cursed. From childhood, she could never keep her hands still. If something was missing, it was always her fault. She never meant to steal. Sometimes, she barely even remembered taking things. Her fingers moved on their own, as if guided by unseen forces. Her mother tried to teach her weaving, her father tried carving, but nothing worked. Until one day, she stole from the wrong person. King Chukwudi ruled Oguta with a firm but fair hand. Unlike other rulers, he was a strategist, a man who valued wit over weapons. One night, during a festival, a golden armband went missing from the palace shrine. The guards found it in Ihieoma's hut. The village council gathered, expecting the usual punishment, public disgrace or exile. But King Chukwudi did something unexpected. "A thief who gets caught is a fool, not a threat," he said, watching Ihieoma carefully. "Tell me, girl, how did you steal from my shrine?" Guards were posted at every corner. Not even a rat could have passed unnoticed. Ihieoma, bruised and kneeling before him, didn't know what to say. She hadn't planned to steal the armband. She had only walked past the shrine, and then suddenly, it was in her hand. "Answer me, girl." But before she could, a voice interrupted. "Because she's one of us?" From the shadows stepped an old man, draped in a black and red robe. The villagers gasped. This was a ghost from Oguta's past. This was Nwafa the Phantom, the last of the Shadow Hands. The Shadow Hands were a secret society of elite thieves, spies, and illusionists who once served Oguta's kings as their eyes and ears across the land. But decades ago, they had been betrayed and wiped out. Only Nwafa survived. And now, staring at Ihieoma, he laughed. "Fate is funny, isn't it, Your Majesty? You destroyed the Shadow Hands, and now the gods have sent you another." The king's face darkened. "Ihieoma is no thief. She is a curse." Nwafa chuckled. "Perhaps. But a curse in the right hands can become a weapon." He turned to Ihieoma. "You don't even know what you are yet, do you? Your fingers don't steal because of greed. They steal because they were made for something greater." For the first time in her life, someone wasn't calling her a disgrace. The king thought carefully. He could have Ihieoma punished, or he could use her. After a long pause, he made a decision. "Nwafa, train her. If she is truly the last Shadow Hand, let's see if she is worth more alive than dead." And so, Ihieoma's true journey began. For the next year, Ihieoma trained under Nwafa. She learned how to move without being seen, how to disappear in plain sight, how to take without a single person noticing. "The world fears thieves because they do not understand them," Nwafa said. "A true Shadow Hand does not steal for herself. She steals for her people." Through grueling training, Ihieoma's curse became a skill. She wasn't just taking things anymore, she was taking control. But she didn't know that Oguta was on the edge of disaster. One night, Obiajulu ran to her training grounds, panting. "Sister, the king is in danger." A group of powerful warlords had entered Oguta as traders, but their true goal was to assassinate King Chukwudi and seize the village. And worse, they had spies inside the palace. By the time Ihieoma reached the king's chambers, the warlords had already struck. The palace was in flames. The guards were dead. And King Chukwudi was nowhere to be found. Ihieoma knew she had one chance. She closed her eyes and let her hands move. Smoke still curled from the palace ruins as the village elders gathered in the great hall, their faces grim. The king was gone, taken by the warlords who had infiltrated Oguta. A heavy silence hung over them. "We must act swiftly," said Chief Okoye, his voice like grinding stone. "If the warlords execute the king, Oguta will fall. Then we must prepare for war," another chief barked. But Obiajelu, standing in the shadows, clenched his fist. "War? Against an enemy we cannot see. They walk among us. Spies. Traitors. We don't even know where the king is." His words sent a shudder through the room. Then, a deep voice cut through the tension. "There is one among us who can find him." All eyes turned toward the old man in the corner, Nofa the Phantom. The elder chief stiffened. They had never trusted him, the last of the Shadow Hands. "What are you saying, old man?" Okoye asked wearily. Nofa leaned forward, his dark eyes glinting. "Ihieoma can bring him back." The hall erupted in outrage. "A thief. She's barely more than a child. We need warriors, not pickpockets." Nofa let them shout, his face calm. Then, when the noise faded, he spoke again. "Your warriors will fail." His voice was ice. They will march in blindly, their swords shining, their banners raised. And they will die. Silence. Then he turned to Ihieoma. "You have trained for this moment. You were born for it." Ihieoma took a breath. This was her chance. "I will bring him back," she said. The room stared at her. Then, Chief Okoye nodded grimly. "If you fail, Oguta is lost." Ihieoma moved like a shadow, slipping through the forest where the enemy patrols stalked the night. She had 3 obstacles before reaching the warlord's stronghold. 1. The traitors, the spies hidden among Oguta's own people. 2. The ghost market, a deadly underground world of mercenaries and informants. 3. The fortress, the heart of enemy territory, where the king was held captive. Each step forward felt like stepping on the edge of a blade. She reached the ghost market just before dawn, a lawless den of thieves and killers. Inside, a hooded figure waited. A traitor from Oguta. "So you're the little thief they sent," the man sneered. "They must be desperate." Ihieoma smiled. "More desperate than you know." Before he could react, her fingers flickered, quick, precise. His dagger was gone. Now in her hands. Before he could shout, she whispered, "Take me to the king." His face paled. She had just stolen his soul. He led her through the market, past slavers, past warlords, past death itself. Until they reached the fortress, where her true trial began. The warlords had built their stronghold deep in the hills, a labyrinth of traps, soldiers, and blood-stained corridors. Ihieoma scaled the outer wall, using shadows as her allies. She passed sentinels without a whisper. She moved through locked doors as if they had never existed. Then, she saw him. King Chokudi. Chained in the center of a torchlit chamber, his body bruised, his eyes still burning with defiance. 2 guards stood watch. One move, and they'd raise the alarm. Ihieoma didn't hesitate. She flicked her wrist, a pebble flew across the room, knocking over a jug. The guards turned for a split second. That was all she needed. She moved like the wind. A twist. A strike. 2 bodies fell, never knowing what hit them. Then she was at the king's side. "Hold still, your majesty." The chains fell away. The king stared at her. "How?" Later, she whispered. "We are leaving." But as they turned, a horn sounded. The alarm had been raised. And the whole fortress came alive with death. Footsteps thundered. Swords flashed. The warlord soldiers poured into the halls. Ihieoma and the king ran, dodging blades, slipping through the chaos. "They'll never let us escape alive," the king growled. Ihieoma smiled. "They won't see us escape at all." She grabbed a torch and hurled it into a stack of gunpowder barrels. Boom! The explosion shook the fortress. Flames roared. Walls collapsed. Through the smoke, Ihieoma led the king into the night. But the warlords were not done. Their leader, a brute called Ihieoma, stepped through the fire. "You think you can steal a king from me?" He raised his sword. Ihieoma raised nothing. Because she had already won. She held up his carrying. "Looking for this," she smirked. His face twisted in shock. And in that moment of hesitation, Ihieoma struck. With a move faster than thought, she sliced his belt, pulled his blade from its sheath, and held it against his own throat. "You came to take Oguta," she whispered, "but Oguta is not yours to take." She knocked him out cold. Then she turned to the king. "Let's go home." By dawn, the people of Oguta awoke to a miracle. Their king had returned. The warlords' invasion had crumbled. And at the center of it all was the girl they had once called cursed. She stood before them, no longer a thief, no longer a disgrace. King Chukwudi stepped forward. "This girl is no thief," he said, his voice booming. "She is Oguta's shadow, our unseen protector." The people bowed their heads in respect. And so, Ihieoma's name changed forever. Not as a curse, not as a thief, but as a legend. The girl who had stolen a king back from the jaws of death. The one who had saved Oguta. The one called Ihieoma, the shadow hand.